You're listening to The People's Pitch, the official podcast of Minneapolis City Soccer Club, brought to you by footballstadiumprints.com. Let's start the show.
And as I talked about just a couple minutes ago, as Joe Watt stands over this one, he appears to be the one taking the penalty here. This is a huge confidence booster if you're Duluth.
Worst case scenario for City right here.
And it stopped! Yes! And it stopped!
Totally redeems himself.
Matt Elder redeeming himself. Oliver with the right foot. The shot is goal!
Oliver!
Justin Oliver will break the scoreless tie. And it is 1-0 Minneapolis City. Is Hutton now on the offense with the left foot.
Goal!
And it is now 2-0 Minneapolis City.
Good finish.
Nick Hutton taking his quick victory lap.
Welcome back to the People's Pitch podcast. It is 2025, and we are stoked to spend it with you, soccer friends. As always, I'm your host, Nate, joined by the man that they call the Jurgen Klopp of the U9s, Minneapolis City founder John Bisworm. John, happy belated anniversary, by the way. I hope you enjoyed your winter break, spent a lot of nice time with the family. I know I did.
I am like the U9 Jurgen Klopp, minus like the 2-pack a day habit, I would say. Tactically, I think we're well aligned. Hi everyone, welcome back. It has been a long break for us, so we do want to acknowledge that. But we decided against, I don't know what you could call it, Nate, like forcing content.
Yeah, we're all killer, no filler is what we like. That's our philosophy.
Yeah. And we needed it. There's a lot going on, but we are back, baby. And I am so ready to talk some Crow. I don't know about you.
Oh, totally, man. So everybody, John and I wanted to start the year out right. We're going to start by talking about the New Look Crows, the New Look Crows front office, I guess, for 2025, as well as the staff that's working behind the scenes on the club, behind the scenes at the Winter League, and beyond. If I was a corporate monster, I'd say we would be reviewing the org chart and synergizing with our stretch goals and performance outcomes.
So much synergy
on that one. Yep.
So much synergy.
And then we're going to dive into the Winter League. We'll talk structure, we'll talk player assignments, and the ultimate kind of goal for all the guys. And then we're going to hear from a couple of returning players about their futures experience. So let's get rolling.
All right, let's get after it.
Yeah. After last year's turbulent start, we'll say turbulent start is a nice way to say it, and the coaching changes that came out of it, club president Adam Pribble, GM, MVB, and the rest of y'all, John, decided that there was maybe a little bit more work to do to build a solid front office network to support the club. So, John, I want to talk a little bit about the club leadership first and foremost, and then who else is behind the club in 2025 that's going to bring the Minneapolis City magic to life. Because I'm really curious how responsibilities are going to end up shaking out over the course of the year, especially with some of these new additions.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, we're almost going on our 10th season.
I can't believe it.
Is going to be right around the corner. And just looking at the landscape of the club, we have done things, I don't want to call it like shoestring and, with duct tape, but it is what it is, right? Where it's all hands on deck. And every single year we get that much smarter about how to run the club. And over time, you learn a lot, right? Like we learned a lot about the podcast. We learned a lot about how to build a team for the league that you're in, things like that. Finding the right league for our club, stuff like that. But what we kind of lost sight of was getting the right people in to do the jobs that we need to do to continue to be successful from a day-to-day running of the club perspective. And that's not a slight on anyone who was involved. I mean, if you think about it, Nate, I mean, how many times did I have to drive a van because there was no one who could, stuff like that. Or, how many times was Dan washing the jerseys, and, so everyone did what they could to get us where we are, and we were very successful with how we were doing things. But, to take your corporate, your corporate comment, we kind of had to get a little bit more organized, almost like a business, because you do have to have checks and balances, and you do have to have leadership, and you do have to have roles and responsibilities.
Yeah. And so I think where that comes to life largely is in the new, I guess, responsibility structure of the club. Like it really used to be, John. I remember when you and I sat down with Dan and Nick Sint in the club shop, and in those days during that podcast, it was like Dan did everything and MVB helped out. And you did the other stuff, and Nick was kind of behind the scenes running the Stegman's side of like the Minneapolis City arm. And now that's not even a consideration in the org chart at all, right? It's like we've got so much, like you said, 3 teams we're fielding plus the Futures League, all these things. Like we've got social media that needs to happen. There's of course merchandise sponsorships that need to be sought after. There's merchandise that needs to be concepted and produced. There's just like the club is so much bigger than it was 8-9 years ago, that I think it's really a testament to how much we've grown, how many people really are involved with the club.
Yep, absolutely. So as far as how things sort out, let's start out with like the front office leadership. So the non-playing side, obviously you have club president Adam Pribble, who sits on top of everything. You also have within that hierarchy, like of major decision makers and people who have to have their pulse on things, is our CFO Paul Schmeckel, who I'm sure a lot of you know who Paul is. He was on this show, but also he's at everything city related. So having someone who can look at the club financials, and it doesn't have to be Dan all the time or Adam all the time, is really important, because obviously having someone who's on the pulse of what money's coming in and what money's going out will really help us be sustainable from a lower level soccer perspective. Because how many teams do you see just go by the wayside because either it's shady shit with the books, or they just don't have the ability to be smart about how they're spending money or even know what's coming in, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's really just like, oh, we got some guys, let's go play, and we'll join one of these leagues called the NPSL or the UPSL or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're gone a year later because you have no money. You didn't realize league fees were so high and field fees were so high and travel was so. Yep.
A player.
Yep. Exactly.
Stuff like that. So the front office is made up of 4 different pillars, I guess you could say, if I'm using my corporate lingo. Obviously, one is the member board, which has a 2-year term cycle. So those members are voted in. The next is game day operations. So newcomer, I guess you could say, in some sorts, as the director of game day and operations is John Martinson, who we had on, and John Martinson is the father of the Minnesota Super Cup. So if you go back to our archives, and you can listen to John talk about his involvement in soccer and how the Super Cup started. And then underneath him is a couple support volunteers, and then ultimately he'll be in charge of the interns. So we typically have 10 interns-ish, something like that?
Yeah, I guess it depends on how many applicants we have, but yeah.
There you go, applicants.
There we go, that's a word.
Then there's the commercial team. Sitting on top of the commercial team as the director is Dan Hudeman, and then a bunch of new people and some names that people probably have not heard. So giving some people some shout outs. Brand new to the team from a project management perspective is Christy Stewart. Christy's great on our front office calls. She's the one who keeps us on track, which is something we all need. Instead of it just being all of us sitting around drinking beers at the club shop talking about the old days.
Which is great.
Keeps us on track. And she's a project manager at Target by trade. So that is her subject matter, and she's helping us out there. Then we have Grave Director Scott Mink. Many of you might know Scott Mink from the Gene Party. His son Evan was front and center for the Gene Party. But Scott is a creative director at our club sponsor TCO, and he helps us with designing of all sorts of things: member packs, jerseys, t-shirt designs, you name it. He's helping out with creative direction. Then you have yourself from a content creator perspective. We have Tim Cheek, who is handling the website and some of more of the multimedia things. Adam Rynch, who is in charge of merchandise. Tyler Birschbach, who some of you may know, I just have his title down as wizardry because he helps do everything tech-wise. Casey Holm, who you saw announced as being part of the sporting side of things, which we'll talk about in a second with his role there. But he's stepping in to help with social media. For myself, I do just kind of a support of all of those folks if they need help anywhere. But I'm the front office's sporting liaison, so I'm the person who they go to when they need things from the playing side. And then Kyle Eliasson is our media coordinator and staff writer, and he ultimately has an intern there. And then lastly, the multimedia team. This is a team that we love the most. You and I are on it from not only our roles as you being the PA person, and myself leading the broadcast team, but also the podcast. Then we have Nordo, and then anyone else who joins the booth, and then Tyler Birchbach again as our producer with our 3-man camera team. So as you can tell, like that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people, and I think that's not even talking about the top four people in the club being the president and the general manager, and now Casey joining as the sporting director, and then you as kind of sporting director emeritus. Right. Yeah. So like, that's just like all those people are for the day to day. And then when you've got like running the club at large, Adam, of course, oversees everything. As the general manager, what's Matt's roles and responsibilities?
Yeah. So Matt is essentially in charge of the playing side. So he is the one who is making sure that we have coaches, we have facilities, we have our sporting director, our new sporting director, and Casey Holm, getting the talent in, making sure that the futures setup is fully staffed. He'll probably equipment, all sorts of things. So if you think about it from versus the front office side, very much like a sporting operations director, where he's really in charge of all of it. He's the league liaison for the UPSL and USL. So that's kind of how his role is set up. But also he dips down and he helps coach out when we hit the futures.
Nice. And as far as like, this was a role you used to have. Talk a little bit about what the sporting director does. Casey Holm, new to the role, coming over from the St. Croix organization. It sounds like he was really excited to join Minneapolis City, and I'm excited to talk to him about it at some point in the next couple of months. But like, what does the sporting director do?
The sporting director role it used to be like a mixture of anything that the club president might do from a sporting perspective, as well as the general manager. But I would say like how it now shakes out is like, I don't want to put a percentage on it, but leaning heavily from a percentage standpoint on recruitment and bringing the players in. Okay. So it's the active knowing what the player pool looks like in the state of Minnesota, and then the bordering states, or players that leave and go away that we want to have come back. So it really is the team building piece, but ultimately working with the head coaches of all three of the teams to support them in anything they might need when it comes to staffing, as well as building out the rosters.
Nice. I mean, so just like almost head scout, right? But also partly responsible for those player relations as well, making sure the guys are set up and feel good about playing and, are registered and all that stuff.
Yep, absolutely. And then like if they have problems or they run into things, like being the fixer as well, or if, there's a question about, anything related to their experience that might not be going well, that Casey's that probably that first line of offense or defense for those types of conversations, if they haven't already talked to their coach.
Cool. Nice. And then you're up there, of course, helping out always. You can't get away.
Yeah. And I think that, once we do get Casey on and we start to hear more about his move from St. Croix, I think a lot of it might go down to the fact that there is the support system at our club, and potentially he might have had to be the person doing all of this, like top down from front office all the way through to sporting by himself, and the ability to have someone like MVB who's doing a lot of the duties, and someone, from a front office perspective, like from a commercial standpoint, or even a president that is giving you the direction you need and the support, has to be something, in my opinion, that is different between the two organizations. That might have been a pulling point to bring him, as well as when we start talking about the coaching staff, a lot of his friends being on the coaching staff.
Yeah, and let's talk about that, because a lot of these guys haven't been officially announced, John. So like, I don't know how deep you want to get into the coaching staff, but who can we talk about? We'll go deep. All right, let's go deep.
So from a first team perspective, today it went out that Justin Oliver's back, as well as from a support perspective, Tudor Clinton is going to be helping him on the USL2 side. There have been some rumors as well of a former Crow coming back in to help round out that staff, and that one I can't talk about yet.
Okay.
I don't know if it's going to happen. So it'll be Justin Oliver leading the USL2 team with Tudor's support. From the second team perspective, in the UPSL, returning is Josh Roy and Derek Johnson. And then from a Summers future perspective, it's Scotty Heinen, David Jensen, and former Crow, who was injured last year, unfortunately. But coming back into the mix, Otis Anderson is going to be helping out on the coaching side and still maybe potentially playing. But first and foremost, helping out on the future side. And then when you talk about the winner, there's a need for more coaches with the futures winner, because there's a lot more moving pieces, and we're going to be talking about the futures adjustments here in a little bit. But we have pretty much all new names. I shouldn't say all new names, a bunch of new names. Mike Hayter, Mike Kuhn, and are new to the staff, and they have connections with both MVB and the other coaches on the team. So bringing in some friends that are finally able and interested in coming into the mix to help coaching at the futures level.
Yeah.
And then Max Loom and Eli Baker, Eli being part of the first futures inception, and then Max Loom being, I think, in his second or third year working with the club. Then from a goalkeeping perspective, new name, Marius Ravode. I don't know. I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly because I'm terrible at names. Will be leading the charge from a goalkeeping perspective, and then Derek Johnson will be supporting. Fun fact about Marius.
Yeah, I want to hear about this guy.
Marius was a professional goalkeeper in his home country of Norway. Played a whole bunch of stops in Norway. Also had technical and coaching responsibilities for the Vancouver Whitecaps. Most recently, Minnesota United, as well as the national teams of Canada and Trinidad and Tobago. And fun fact, Marius has 12 career appearances for Hollywood FC in Wrexham. So in 2012 he played for Wrexham.
Back when it was definitely more ramshackle. I want to say, John, I did see Marius at I think his stepson on the futures in the Winter League.
Stepson, yeah.
Just kind of how he kind of came into the mix and whatever. But like, I saw him and he reminded me of you for one reason. He was wearing he's wearing his soccer boots.
Of course.
While coaching.
Yeah, when you coach, you have to have proper footwear.
I'm like, that guy is in the John Bisworm school of soccer coaching, and I liked him. I liked him from the moment I saw him. That'll be cool. Let's get him on the talk. He sounds like he's going to be an interesting guy.
Absolutely. And then there's two other sides of the sporting arm of the club that we don't talk a lot about. One is new, and one has been something that we've been trying to get off the ground. And that in particular is the performance side.
Okay.
That's led by Majid Meklid. And Majid is a high-level accredited international coach from a badge perspective, but also is very, very involved in the international sports performance world. And he's been with the club for 2 years now, and really behind the scenes on opponent scouting and then match analysis. And he has 3 interns that work for him that provide our coaches with whatever analysis they need to support what the individual teams might want from a scouting perspective, as well as like a decision-making perspective when it comes like player A versus player B. Majid and his team go in and look at all of the data that's being collected on all the players. So that's definitely one area that we don't talk about. And then new to the mix this year is more of like a coaching program from an internship perspective. So trying to not only like apply the model that we do for the players with the Futures program, bring in like the next wave of talent. We're working through a program that's being spearheaded by Eli Baker of looking at it on the coaching side and starting to get in some of the younger coaches in the area to basically be intern type coaches that will, listen, learn, and support of all of our coaching staffs for all of the teams. And then ultimately the hope is that they are groomed and get the knowledge of how this level of soccer works. Yeah. And then move into the coaching ranks in the future.
That's phenomenal, because I know in the past, like, there has been sometimes an issue around like getting enough coaches or finding the coaches. It's less of a problem lately. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to say as early as 4 years ago, maybe we had that issue where it's just like, who can we tap to coach?
Right.
So that's phenomenal to have kind of do the same for coaches that we're doing with the Futures.
Yep, absolutely. And
I also, John, if you told me like that we would have a performance guy that's doing like positional analysis and all these things, and like you said, like advising the coaches on who to start and in what games and things like that, it's just like, wow, that's a huge surprise, and what a step forward for the club too, because it always kind of felt just like the coaches know the players and they make the choices based on the eye test.
I still think it's probably more heavily leaning on that. But when it comes to like, how does St. Croix set up?
Right.
Versus this type of formation, we can go to someone and they can tell us exactly how it is. And then Coach Oliver can take that information, even though his brother might be coaching the team. Maybe a bad example, Bavarians.
Sure.
Like, how do the Bavarians? What's their system of play and their formation in the attack versus in the defense? They can go back and look at the tape, and they can say like, well, here's how it is. Here's the danger men that we need to account for. But it could also be, when it comes to decision making, like player A, player B, very similar. Like, what's the differentiator or differentiators between a guy I should start and a guy I shouldn't? Why? Like, help me out here.
That's cool. That's awesome. That's awesome to have.
Yep, absolutely. So a lot of new faces, a lot of really great, talented people that we don't talk a lot about, I guess, on the podcast. So giving some people some shout outs. Welcome to all of them. I think the evolution of the club cannot be done without having this type of structure and these type of people in play.
Yeah. Thanks to them.
So on to the next piece of information to tackle today, Nate. Futures Winter League. The trials have been completed and players have been selected. We are fully underway, Nate, with our favorite segment. Well, I don't know. I think it's our favorite segment of the season because it means soccer's real once Winter Future starts. So the ball's already been rolled out as we're entering week 2 of the Futures Winter segment. And there are some updates this year that we want you people to know about. Just a quick refresher. The Futures program was started back in, I believe it was 2019, 2020. Can you keep me honest on that? Is that right?
Yeah, it was definitely COVID times.
Yep. And the architect of that, the Futures program, Jeremiah Johnson, had him on here. He was with the club staff through last season, but stepped aside to take care of some things that he was focusing on. His vision was to build a place for talented players of all walks of life across the state of Minnesota that fall into the age range of 16 to 20. So really that developmental piece for a club like ours. And this project gave the area's top players the opportunity to not only be part of something bigger, but also to, in a supplemental fashion, to be additive on top of their ongoing youth club experiences elsewhere. And so essentially the goal for the players was to not only introduce them to the playing with the best of the best, but was also to help them elevate their game and prepare them for the next stage of their soccer journey, whether it be college or pre-professional soccer, professional soccer, moving up in the hierarchy of the second team or the first team, whatever it might be. But it all kind of culminates to the creation of the 26 players that will be elevated to play in the UPSL that summer. So after some reflection last year, the sporting staff kind of met, put their heads together, and made some augmentations that we felt were necessary, given that it's year 4 of the development part of the club programming. The reflection on that programming has been, the fact that there's a natural need to refresh and to add or take away certain things. But what I like to put emphasis on is that there was a lot of feedback from the players that were in the program on what their experience was like and what they would maybe like to see, that was taken into consideration. And when I say players, I mean both like returning players, but also alumni of the Futures program. So some players that were talked to that no longer are part of the club, as well as some that are still in the club.
Yeah, and I think if listeners remember, John, Futures found a lot of success early in its life with something like 4 to 6 teams of players who would square off in a traditional mini league. And I remember we would have these teams that were named after the neighborhoods, and there would be a relegation. You're still there, right? So that's something that's still around. But as that culminated in a playoff, and of course crowning the winners after the season, and a relegation, like a elimination of the team that lost, that finished bottom of the table.
The neighborhood's gone.
And that team would never appear again in the Futures, which I think is funny. But I think as the club has expanded its reach and definitely been able to do more targeted recruiting, and really, I think, critically added younger and younger players to this pool of Futures players, you found that it didn't really work as well last year. You had high schoolers with club and family conflicts that meant they were out for multiple weeks, right? College players who sporadically didn't make the trip. You got the goalkeeper pool that was a little bit shallow last year. There were some issues with players not coming. So all of a sudden teams end up a little imbalanced. And when you've got a team for the full season, you're stuck with them. It can get a little frustrating. I understand that, right? And that led to a not ideal experience for some players, which this new format should address. So it's really exciting.
Yep, absolutely. I think you hit on all the points there. And to go back to like how it's getting younger, there were some 15-year-olds in trials this year.
Yeah.
And those 15-year-olds can play. So it's great that the word is out. It's funny to say after year 4, but the word's out now. Just by going to I was part of the trial process, and just watching the level of talent, it is so strong. And I'm sure you saw it in play when you went last week. But it's so good to see that the pool itself is getting stronger and younger, but still its main focus that JJ set out for is there, and I don't think it's ever going to go away, because it really is what was needed in this area, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And just a quick anecdote to help your point. Like, I was watching, I think it was like a team. It was like just a 4-on-4 mini game, right? And it was Carter Hermanson and I believe like AJ Wele and some other guys that were definitely older, squaring up against Axel Martin, Sebi Fernandez, Ethan Brown, and Olin, right? And I'm like, oh, these poor guys. They're going to get rocked. And they're just, it's the level that these Futures players, especially the returning Futures players, are able to hold themselves to against players that are either in college or have finished college by now, or finished in college. Like, we're so lucky that we've got this player pool of Minneapolis City talent that we're developing for the future.
My favorite thing, Nate, is whether it's trials or it's in full-on winter session, is that first welcome to the show moment that the younger players get when they take that one extra touch and then they just get housed. Like, never going to do that again. These guys are way quicker and way stronger. I need to get rid of the freaking ball, or I'm going to feel it the next day. I saw it at trials this year, and I haven't yet made it out to the first 2 weeks, but I do plan on coming out not this week, but next week to check it out. And I guarantee you, you're going to still see some in a couple weeks. But as far as the format goes, so the old format was broken up into 2 phases in the winter segment, and that was essentially a few weeks of pool training where all of the players that were involved in the Futures program would train together. And then there was a draft for the 7v7 sides that you mentioned, Nate. And those players were then put on the different neighborhood teams. And then the second segment was 7v7 league, week in, week out until ultimately the championship, and then summer would start. So what we heard from some of the players was, and like you mentioned, like when there's any pitfalls that do come up, as far as maybe your goalkeeper doesn't show up that day, or there's a club commitment that for the youth club that the player plays for, or a college commitment from a school perspective, anything under the sun, just things happen, and we wouldn't have a way to be able to counter that and still provide the same experience, the high level experience for the player, because there might be only 7 guys that show up on your team week in and week out, and that doesn't really help anybody, even though we are adding the competitive piece to it. So this year the new format is broken up into 3 different phases. So for 2 weeks, so two sessions once a week, the entire pool will train, and then the next 2 weeks will be to round out the month are 7v7 league nights. And then culminating after the league nights is a scrimmage night, which is basically being dubbed as the weekly all-star game, which is 11 aside. And then the remaining players who don't make the 11 aside groups will then ultimately on their side play small-sided games and continue to play. But give them the ability to see, like, I didn't perform and I'm not over there, and I want to be over there. So it adds a little bit more of a competitive piece to it, which I really love. But also, one of the things that we heard from a coaching staff perspective was at the end of the Futures training or Futures segment, I don't know if I have a right back, or I don't know if I have a defensive center midfielder, because the 7v7 environment does allow you the opportunity for you to see players in different situations, but it might not translate for you to trust someone in an 11 aside situation. So that was one of the reasons why we added that 11 aside piece to it, so that these coaches can start to see players and start to, in their minds, formulate the ones that they want to select for position specific situations once they get outside in the sun.
Yeah, and what I like about it too, John, is, you know, Scotty and the rest of the Future staff have done a great job of adjusting. Like, I really like how this mixes the teams up every month. Even like you said, every 3 weeks, really. Like, you play for 2 weeks on whatever team you get drafted to, and then if you're a standout player, then you'll make the all-star team, and then you start again, right? So there's always these opportunities to improve and to stand out, and it might have to do with team makeup, it might have to do with your role or how you're feeling, or if you even show up. But like, it just feels like it's nice to provide that fresh start for players who might end up on a losing team. But also I like that it forces the player pool to adapt. It forces them to play with more people and really learn the tendencies of each other on both sides of the ball, playing with them and playing against them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really going to benefit the older group of players and ultimately the UPSL teams for sure.
Well, and then you don't get to the summer and it's like, that guy didn't play with that guy and their cohesion is awful. And I have to rely on that. You know what I mean? And it also gives I think that the main strength of these adjustments, number one, I think from a coaching perspective, I mentioned it allows the coaches to start to formulate what a full squad would look like for the summer, which will only make the team stronger.
Yeah.
From a playing perspective, there's so many more individual battles that you have to try to be the winner of in order to warrant getting selected. So now it's not like, hey, I scored 20 goals during the winter, why did I not get selected for the team? Well, this reason, that reason. Well, that doesn't help the player. But what it does is it helps the players handle any sort of adversity that they might might be thrown at them, which is what they're going to get when they hit the next levels of their soccer journey.
For sure. I was looking at the rosters for the pink and the black groups when I showed up at Futures last week, And I got there between the early and the late session. So I saw a lot of those early guys leaving. I didn't really recognize any of them. So I was like, it was nice to have Paul was there. It's so funny that Paul and his wife Kristen are there, like checking the kids in, making sure that everyone's got their kit. If you don't have a jersey, like, here you go. If you haven't picked it up yet. And then he's out there shagging balls. He's such a, like,
he loves it.
What an awesome guy.
And I love seeing it.
I do too. It was just so cool to just be like, and he's like, you know what? I sit at a desk all day, so this is perfect. And I thought, yeah, that is. I mean, that's why I'm here, man. I got to get out. I got to get the hell out of the house, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Out of the house too much. We need some more me time, Nate.
Yeah. But anyway, so as I was saying, I was looking at the roster because he had one printed out for check-in, and I recognized like one name, John, on that early session. And it was Kai Halbersma, the kid that has followed Minneapolis City since he was like 10 years old, which you love to see. And I'm not to toot my own horn, but like that U19 to U21 talent pool is kind of in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I would say so. Like, you know it better than I do.
I know, between like Olin's high school and club career and like my Augsburg announcing, I see a lot of players that Minneapolis City sees, whether they're playing for Minneapolis City or playing against them. So I think it's amazing that City has identified what is it, like 40 some kids in that early session? Maybe 50.
Yeah, I would say it's probably around 40. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Either way, like that 40 some kids might be outside of that ECNL bubble, or they might be standouts at schools that aren't like metro area powerhouses, and they're not regulars in the state tournament. Like, so phenomenal. Like, this is the exact thing that the Futures was created for, is to give opportunities to these players who might not have those opportunities anywhere else, or just don't have the spotlight on them usually. So really cool to see. I'm really looking forward to getting to know some of those names from the early group. But both groups are going to be coached by the same coaches, right?
Yep.
Okay. Who are this year's Futures coaches?
All right. So I'll go with neighborhood name first, and then I'll go with the coaches. So Powderhorn, which has been since the inception, the head coach of Powderhorn will be Otis Anderson, with Scotty Heinen assisting for Powderhorn. Marcy Holmes, which I believe came in year 2, the head coach will be Majid Macklid, who I mentioned was on the performance side, and then Derek Johnson. And then East Bank Rovers, which was my team for the last 3 years, is head coached by Max Loom and assisted by Eli Baker. And then Near North, which I think Near North was an original as well. That's going to be head coached by the team Mike. Mike Kuhn and Mike Hader are going to split head coaching duties, and then MVB is going to be the assistant coach. So, Nate, you had the chance to pop in, like you mentioned, and we already know that you love watching Paul shag balls and check players in, but you were able to talk to some returners. How'd that go?
Yeah, that's right. I got to watch the later session, which is mostly like 07s and above. And that included a few noteworthy college players returning for another year of Futures, hoping maybe to make a push to develop more, maybe to get more minutes in the summer, or as we're going to hear, a leap to the USL2 team. Guys that I recognize there, Carter Hermanson, I already mentioned, AJ Wille, Mickey Daniel, I recognized him. So I was able to talk to AJ and Mickey afterwards just to get their thoughts on returning to Futures and what it feels like, and kind of how it benefited them last year, given that they both had some nice college seasons and definitely some nice summers with the Futures last year.
Yeah, let's have a listen.
I'm AJ Willej. I'm 2005. I play for North Central University.
All right. So this is your second year with the Futures,
yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
You had a good season on the U21s, few goals, few assists, not bad,
yes, sir.
And it all went down to the final, which was excellent.
Yes,
looking back, what have you enjoyed about 2024 with Minneapolis City?
I just say the competitiveness. Everybody come in, want to compete, want to get that first starting spot on the first team or the second team or something like that, and just competing with everyone. That's what I enjoyed really.
So this is your second year in the Winter League as well, right?
Yes, sir.
What are you looking to build on this year? What are you hoping to achieve throughout the winter and into the summer?
My goal is to probably play on the first team or make the first team or train with the first team. So that's one of the goals, or just being on the second team and working my ass off to be on the first team.
Nice. Different Futures group this winter, right? how are you feeling compared to last year with this mix of players compared to last year, which was a lot of older players, right?
Yeah, this year is a little bit different because, like you said, younger guys like coming to compete too. But it also raised up the competitiveness. Like the younger guys, they over here want to play on the second team or want to compete with us, the other guys. So it's great. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, man. It's great to see you here again. Looking forward to seeing you this summer.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it, AJ.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mickey Daniel. I play at Augsburg University, and I am currently a junior. So, yeah.
All right. This is your second year with Futures, right?
Yes, it is.
Last year you had 1 goal in the U21s. Talk about how last summer went as that U21 team came together and you guys saw so much success on the field.
It was just a great group of guys, just to have all the best players from all the colleges around Minnesota come together. We honestly had like an ultimate team, and we were really deep in the squad, so that helped a lot. Just playing in and out and high level and competing every day was really fun. So yeah, it was a good season.
You had a great season this past fall with Augsburg. You had 2 assists. You saw the field a lot more. How do you feel Minneapolis City helped with that? Did Minneapolis City help with that, I guess, is the first question. And what are you hoping to build on for next fall?
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, just having all the best players around the Twin Cities just come together and pushing you every single day, just iron sharpening iron, and just like really getting that feel for the ball at a high level is really important, even during the off season. So Minneapolis City, I'd say, helped me a lot, especially for the Augsburg, as well as what I do off the pitch. So I think it's very important just to be able to play at this club.
Last year on the U21s, you had guys like your boy Tomas from Augsburg. You had the Hermansons, right? A lot of older guys, seniors that are gone now, right? Mm-hmm. You're suddenly one of the older players in this future group. What's that like?
At first, I was pretty skeptical, but seeing it now, there's a lot of high quality players. They're always asking questions. There's a lot of more, I'd say, fire in the group. I'd say they're here to compete. They're here to play just like everyone else. So not much has changed. I think even the competitiveness has probably even risen a bit. So I'm just happy to be here and giving my best every day.
All right, cool. Mickey Daniel, thanks a lot.
So awesome to hear, John, just how both Mickey and AJ appreciate the Futures environment. I think both of them are, as you heard, like both of them are kind of making the transition from being one of the younger guys in the U21 pool to all of a sudden being, hey, this is just how Futures is now, and I'm as a 21-year-old or as a U21 player, like kind of one of the vets around here. So what does that mean as they shift their roles? What does that mean for their mentality? How do they keep pushing themselves in that environment? And both of them have a great attitude. It was awesome to meet and talk to them. And I'm looking forward to hearing and seeing a lot more of them this winter and into the summer.
It's really great to hear like a 20-something-year-old talk about being a leader, isn't it? You don't really think about that when you're like, oh, I got a couple 20-year-old kids, and then they're talking about like being part of something and taking on a leadership role and helping out younger players. Like that's such a great thing to hear. Really makes my heart warm, Nate.
That's right. And it warms your cockles.
Easy.
So the winter future segment runs from January 3rd through April 18th before the selection of those summer teams. And this year there's going to be a bit of a rebranding on that front. What used to be what we called last year the U19 team is just going to be called Minneapolis City Futures, still playing in the UPSL Division 1, right? And the U21 team is going to go back to the old name MC2.
Love it.
Yep, still playing UPSL Premier. And of course, then we've got the USL2 team. That's going to be good old Minneapolis City. Never going to change. It's nuanced, but I think that's important, John, to say our 3 teams are called Minneapolis City Futures, Minneapolis City 2, and Minneapolis City because, like, Sessler aside, who was a stellar exception of a guy who was able to step into the U19 squad and just be like, fuck it, I'm just going to ball out.
He loved it.
Yeah, and they loved him, right?
Yeah.
But last year, I'm sure there were some hard feelings if a player was only getting minutes on a team that maybe they thought they were too old for based on the name alone, right? Like, I'm not a U19 player. I'm not a U21 player. What am I doing here? Hopefully this addresses that. Hopefully this just allows the players in our player pool to get minutes where they're most appropriate and not feel weird about it.
I think if you go back to the first part of our conversation, we started talking about the sporting director role. I think the one piece that you just hit on there that made me want to mention this is that that's another part of the sporting director's job when there's multiple teams. It's just to have those conversations, but with players that feel that they need to be in a different environment and give them the reasons why and the reasons how, as well as manage the movement, right? Like there's nothing harder than trying to identify talent that is ready and then have to try to go to Coach Oliver and be like, okay, well, there's these 4 guys and then they're like, I got to focus on the 26 I already got.
Mm-hmm.
Like how is this all going to work? And making sure that players don't bring a level down, but still give them the opportunity to try. So I think that's also a role of that sporting director piece. Just want to mention that real quick for you. Because I know you asked the question.
Thanks. Yeah, good addition.
Only answer it. So we'll keep you posted on the Winter League up until it ends in April, which seems forever from now, but we will do that. And that will do it for tonight's show, folks. We have to give a shout out to our wonderful show sponsor, footballstadiumprints.com. Our friends at footballstadiumprints.com are always expanding their soccer-focused t-shirt design, prints, and more. Don't forget to use the code CROWS10. That's CROWS10 for 10% off of everything you purchase. And remember, all orders ship from the United States, so no pesky international shipping charges. They're like in year 5 now, right? We got to bring Steve back.
Bring Steve back, yeah.
See how things are going. Note to self, I'll write that down. As a reminder, Minneapolis City is a 501c3, so you can feel good that your membership doubles as a charitable donation to the club that does good. Memberships for 2025 season are now available. Get in early. Get a vote on big off-season decisions like kit design vote is right around the corner. I've seen them all, Nate. They're all great options.
Yeah.
Don't miss the opportunity to help choose one because we know you want to buy it once it comes out, so you might as well pick the one you want to buy. We know you have thoughts as well. Let us know what you want us to cover this offseason, what interviews you want, etc. Connect with us on Twitter X at The People's Pitch and now on Instagram. Well, I can do the now off and on Instagram at The People's Pitch Podcast. And you can even email us if you have any questions or topics you want us to cover on the show, mcscpodcast@gmail.com. Of course, you can always connect with the club on Twitter X at MPLS City SC. But hit us up first so we can get some of that show content rolling. And that is all for this week, folks. I am John. That was Nate. So happy to be back with you. We will be spending the rest of the winter staying on top of Futures League and catching up with staff on the show and so much more. And until next time, get up.